Hello, I'm Lynn White. I'm the Board of Director for the National Fire Heritage Center and have the privilege this year of chairing the Benjamin Franklin Writers Award Committee. Our purpose is to recognize writers who are helping us to fulfill our mission to preserve America's fire service history through their writing, whether it's a book, a periodical, a digital document, or whatever format, just so it's something in writing that we can keep in the archives and help the future emergency responders and fire engineers or whoever, whatever aspect of fire service that they are concerned with. We are privileged today to have the opportunity to visit with Dr. John Townsend, who was a Bronze Award winner for his columns in the Industrial Fire World magazine for over 20 years, called Focus on Hazmat. John, I say John, he's Dr. John Townsend, but he's a friend of ours, and I just keep referring to him as John. As a chemist, how did you get interested in the fire service?
Well, I started my working life as a board certified medical technologist, but I like to practice in small towns, small hospitals, country doctors sort of thing. And so I was working in one in West Texas. It belonged to the city, and it was an unwritten law that if you worked for the city, you joined the fire department. I did and enjoyed it very much. I made two mistakes. In those days, the office of county fire marshal was an elected office for small counties. And first mistake, I ran for the office, and the second mistake was that I got elected. But I went to fire marshal school every year. And then when my children grew up, we'd take them to A&M for 4-H club activities every summer. While they were there, I'd go over and have a home week with the fire school people. And then one day I got a phone call, Larry Payne, that they needed somebody that, as he put it, could speak good chemistry and good firehouse in the same breath. I wanted to know if I would be interested. And he outlined the deal, and I was very definitely interested. And so I went down, looked things over, took the job, and here I am, best job I ever held.
Very good. And how did that lead a chemist then to get so interested in hazardous material and develop the interest in writing this column on hazardous materials?
Well, that was the reason for my being there. If some of these things go up, we have to deal with what's on the ground. And the problem that we had then, it was a new thing. They were shipping a lot of these chemicals around for the first time, and all they knew that car contained very much trimethyl bad stuff. And so the big part of our activity there was being a sort of who do you call? They would call us. I'd get called at 3 o'clock in the morning, whoever was on call, and they would have questions. What can I do about this and that? And we were able to answer a lot of them. But hazardous materials, as we know them, was fairly new at that time. And the average fire training consisted of putting the wet stuff on the red stuff, and that was it. And that's not always what you want to do. So there was definitely a need there. And when we found out that the industrial fire world was going to make its debut, my boss walked in and said, "Hey, John, why don't you try writing a column for that publication?" And I said, "Well, that sounds like something I can do." And so I wrote a column. It was on anhydrous ammonia. That was the first one. And I sent it in, and I was kind of surprised I published it. and wanted to know if I could do another one for next month, and I said I would, and here we are.
Very good.
30 years later.
Well, I think it's interesting that you were able to look at not only the industrial hazardous materials issues from the plant perspective, but also from the perspective of the communities in which they resided to help those responders be informed as well. The unique thing I think about your column was that you integrated the history of behind the hazardous materials topic that you were addressing. And I guess because we have such a passion in preserving that history, what motivated you to take that approach?
Well, I found it very interesting. I had a economics instructor years ago. One of the few things he said that made any sense was that everything is connected to everything else. Prior to Henry Ford and chief workers in Germany, Daimler and some of them, you bought gasoline in the drugstore and used it to remove spots from clothing. And it was a byproduct of the manufacture of kerosene. And so kerosene was the main product at the time. And so we didn't have these tank trucks rolling down the highway on the rails with gasoline in them. And then the Model T came along, and suddenly kerosene was relegated to the back burner, and gasoline became the product of choice. And now here is Joe Blow out here. He's the fire chief at Townsend, and he has the gasoline tank suddenly appears in his community. And if he gets a leak in that thing, he better not pull his steam fire pump up and let it run down the gutter. They need to know what that is. They need to know what foam is. My hobby horse there is that when that tank goes up, I don't care where it goes up to, Typhoid Junction or the middle of Texas City, when it goes up, excuse me, the firefighting capability, the fire department at the scene is going to have to take care of it, at least until we can get some experts in there. And so they need to know the rudiments of it, and they need to know how to find out, which in those days meant calling one of us.
It's interesting how things have evolved over time in the hazardous materials world as it became, like you were describing, the evolution of how it became more visible in every aspect of our lives. Not just it's what's under the kitchen sink, but it could be what's riding through your town and on the railroad car. But I think it's interesting how you were always able to take very technical information and make sense to the everyday firefighter as it dealt with the reality of what they were involved with. How did you decide to take that approach?
Well, primarily with rubbing shoulders with the practical firefighters. The thing was changing, and still is. When I was an undergraduate student, we had a little bottle in the laboratory made out of paraffin, and it held maybe 25 cc's. And in it was a liquid that we were told was hydrochloric acid. And all we ever saw of it, they took a glass rod and dipped in it, and the glass rod got etched. And that was our sum total of our dealings with hydrochloric acid. Now that it has become one of the feedstocks for the manufacture of lead-free gasoline, you can see it on most of the refinery
Well, I think it's interesting too that a lot of people see are thinking, not a lot of people, but maybe there are people out there that are thinking about possibly beginning to write a news column about some historical or some valuable fire service topic. And they get started and then they run out of spiz pretty fast. Since you maintained the momentum for over 20 years, what kind of advice can you give future writers to help them get off to a good start?
Well, one thing, they need some practical experience. I've noticed some articles in another publication that we both know about that were obviously not written by anybody that had ridden the tailboard. They may have been correct, but they were not realistic. And then you have to meet the demand. If the people are having problems with metallic sodium, that's what you have to deal with. You don't do any good writing an article on the Hazelbach-Hadelman equation.
Very good.
I would say do that and keep your contact with the local fire department. Find out what's giving them static or what's giving them trouble. In one place is probably going to be giving a department a problem in another place, and it would be the material for a good article. The other thing, Anton, that he was editing Industrial Fire World, he always had a sort of a theme for each issue, and so it made it easy to dovetail in with his theme, and we got a coherent issue out of it. So that's another thing your editor has to work with.
Very good. Well, it's great to visit with you today, John, and I want to congratulate you again on your Bronze Award for your diligent work over the past 20 plus years, and know that the articles that you have written are eventually all going to be in the National Fire Heritage Center archives, as we're working on getting all copies of Industrial Fire World in the archives. But for the copies of the articles that were submitted for your nomination. They are already available. If someone would like to review them, if they've not been familiar with your work and want to learn more about your style from what they can read, you can go to fireheritageusa.org and go to collections and see Dr. Townsend's work. Just go code by his name or by the topic Hazmat and scan down and find the article. And it's just exciting to have an opportunity to visit with you and to be able to preserve what you've done in preserving America's fire services history at the National Fire Heritage Center. Hope our viewers will return with us for the next video with the next Bronze Award winner for 2021. And we're soon going to be announcing the opportunity to nominate your favorite author of some document that you feel like has really important role in preserving America's fire heritage. So watch for that. Again, I'm Lynn White with the National Fire Heritage Center, Ben Franklin Writers Award Committee, and we look forward to how you can become involved in helping us achieve its mission to preserve America's fire service history. Thank you.